If you think about a medieval castle interior, you're probably thinking a dark, dingy, dungeony type of place. Maybe something like this. However, this wouldn't have been the case. Now, today, we normally think about castles as basically any kind of fortified building that would have been being used. However, castles were predominantly homes of wealthy individuals that were fortified for their protection. However, the primary use was still that of a home, meaning that oftentimes these castles were actually elaborately painted and decorated to be able to show off the wealth of the person who's living there. Now, this isn't the case for every castle. There's going to be lots of different types of castles, some that were mainly used to put down rebellions or used as outposts or forts. However, there is quite a lot of historical data showing that many castles would have actually looked something more like this. Because humans are humans, and just like nowadays, back then, rich people would have wanted to show off their wealth. Well, what was the most expensive things that you could buy at the time? It wasn't Gucci, it wasn't Armani, it was paints. It was having elaborately colored and dyed fabrics and walls. And so instead of showing off their wealth by walking around with a rollie on their wrist, they would have instead painted their ceilings. Similarly, we might think of medieval food as being something very plain. However, those spices were very important. We all know about the spice trade. Well, back in medieval times, they actually would have heavily spiced their foods to the point where we would consider it to be pretty disgusting at this point. They would have been putting anything from nutmeg and cinnamon to any kind of crazy spice that you can think of, they would have been adding into their foods. And so they would have been heavily spiced because that was a way that they could show off how wealthy they were, especially when they had guests. They were like, look how much money I'm willing to spend on you. I'm putting all this sugar, I'm putting all this nutmeg, I'm putting all this crazy stuff all over the meat. Have you seen my walls? I'm very wealthy.